There's 4 stages to a customer journey. The first one is awareness. So this is how does somebody become aware of your business? So get a reasonable sized piece of paper and just write down the things that you do. So you've got a website, your network, you might advertise on third-party sites, you might get referrals from existing clients, you might use Google AdWords, you're probably on social media, you might do exhibitions like this, you might have an email campaign. Just list them all. You'll be surprised sometimes. So I did a journey map for a client yesterday, and they said, no, I hardly do anything really. And we got to about 11 different things they were doing. Being aware of a business and what they can do is fine, but then the customer's got to move to what we call consideration. So that's making sure they've got the information they need to decide if they're going to buy from you. And that's part of a journey. So this particular business, essentially, we went through various bits. They had a contact form on the website, but what they really wanted was a phone call. All these arrows are just, okay, so if I meet somebody at an exhibition, where can they go from there? So they could see me on social media, LinkedIn. They could just phone me straight away. They could go on my website to understand how wonderful I am and then complete the contact form or ring me. And then consideration. So this is all about how do you give them the information to decide whether or not to buy. So typically this is a meeting, a discussion, follow-up email, maybe a quote, and then some follow-up on that. This particular business was B2B, and the phone call was all about arranging a face-to-face meeting. The face-to-face meeting was all about being able to send a quote out. And they did some things around the side, so there was emails and posts. They'd do a webinar, they'd do a product demonstration. There were various things that would happen. And those are just all the different routes that a customer could go through. But once they've got all that information and they've made a decision, what does the buying process look like? And the buying process here was they were signing customers up on a 2-year contract. If the customer agreed to buy, they'd complete some paperwork face-to-face. There were some emails and phone calls to arrange an installation. And they did some face-to-face training to make sure the customer could use it. Interestingly, you also need to ask, what if they don't buy? If they don't buy, what this company did was they put them on their database and they'd start sending them emails. Anybody know Einstein's definition of madness? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? So there was a little bit of that. And you start to spot things like that really quickly when you map a customer journey. I did one for one of the big 6 energy companies, and I mapped what happened when a customer left. And what I found was that the marketing team put a flag on the account because they were going to close the account down. The ops team put a flag on the account because they were going to close it down. They didn't know that the marketing team had a win-back strategy, and they would send a letter to the customer to try and win them back. The marketing team didn't know that that flag went on the account regardless of why the customer was leaving. And the ops team treated somebody who died as having left. So the marketing team was sending out 4,500 letters a month to deceased customers. And the opening line in the letter was, "Sorry you're leaving, wish you were taking us with you." And they got multiple complaints on each letter. They got 12,000 complaints a month because of that one thing. How many people do you have to employ to answer 12,000 complaints a month? It was a huge cost. Because it was one of the big 6 energy companies, it was a very small percentage of their complaints though. And then the next bit is, if there were any problems, there was phone calls and emails. If not, they'd basically ignore the customer for 20 months, and then they'd give them a call to see if they were going to renew. If the customer did renew, it just goes back round that loop again. If they didn't, they'd hand it over to one of their competitors, and then they'd put them on the mailing list. They'd start sending them emails again. So you can already see that there's a number of potential issues. And the way that I do it, I tend to just show it with a warning triangle. And A lot of this is from common sense. So yeah, I've got 25 years experience doing it. As you map a customer journey, you will see things in your business that are not quite right. You will see gaps. You will see where things end. Ideally, as you're mapping the journey, do it with somebody that doesn't really know your business that well. If you've got an irritated member of staff that always asks that really irritating question. I used to be that person, by the way. And just say, because they'll be saying things like, so what do you want them to do now? Or I want them to do this. And force yourself to look at it through the customer's eyes. And some examples, and this business is fairly typical. Their website and their email campaign was all about their products. It wasn't about what their customers needed and how they solved them. So it all just came across as a bit shouty. The phone call was nothing to do with listening to the customer and what they wanted. It was all about booking an appointment. The appointment was 80% them talking about their products and 20% them listening to the customer. It should be the other way around. The proposal wasn't, we've listened to you, this is what you need, because. It was, we think you should buy this without any reason. And this sold to 1 out of 4 proposals that they sent. So you imagine the time and effort that you put in just to get to the point where you can send a quote to a customer and you're only hitting 1 out of 4. They weren't learning anything, so they were just, if the customer didn't go ahead, they were just putting it on the mailing list. And then the biggest piece was here. So they were signing people up on a 2-year contract. If you do something similar, measure your customer retention, measure your customer lifetime value. You need to understand how long a customer will stay with you and how much income they will generate for you over that period. A lot of businesses look to get as much money as possible from a client on the first sale. It's 12 times more effective to focus on the lifetime value and understand how much income they will generate in total. So if you don't measure your customer retention, start to do it. We worked out that they were worried because they weren't growing. And the reason was they were losing 80% of the clients at the end of the 2-year contract. But when you see it as a picture, the reason they were losing 80% of the clients was because there was just no contact whatsoever. They were ignoring the customer. All we did was make 2 changes. So we changed the proposal so it told a story. We changed it to 80% listening. So the proposal then just said, we've listened to you, this is your need, this is what you're looking at long term, this is what we recommend because it meets your needs, fits your budget. Suddenly they were selling to 1 out of 2. And then we made a change, so we built a relationship after the customer had bought. Now this was 4 years ago, and they lose less than 1% of customers a year now. So it's had a huge impact on them. It's a very simple technique. It's showing your business as a picture, and 67% of people will take information in because it's visual rather than words much more quickly. The first time I used this, I didn't know what I was doing. I worked for Halifax Bank of Scotland. I was head of channel management. And one of our challenges was to increase sales in financial services. I drew the sales process as a picture. I worked out where we were losing customers along the way. I started to ask stupid questions. Why are we doing that? And I got told that it's a legal requirement, so I went to see the head of legal and it wasn't. It's a regulatory requirement, so I phoned the regulator and it wasn't. It's an admin requirement, so I went to see the head of admin and it wasn't. So we stopped doing it, and sales went up by 1/3. And the meetings that I had with the directors to explain the problem and get the budget agreed to make the change never lasted more than 5 minutes, because I literally just went in, put it down and said, this is a sales process, there's the problem, can we fix it? And everyone just got it straight away. So however you decide to do it, I would urge you to map your customer journeys. Thank you very much.